Hi there, welcome back to another practice with me. My name is Jessie. If any of you are new, today's practice is going to be a nice, simple flow known as the moon salutation. So it's kind of like a sun salutation, but it's also a little bit different. And that's what I'll be guiding you through after a short warm-up. So we're going to get into that right away. You can cross your legs and sit in that position if that's comfortable for you. You might want to prop yourself up on a pillow, a block, or a bolster, or even a folded up blanket will work great. And that's just going to give you a little bit of extra height in your seat, so you'll be a little bit more comfortable through your hips and your knees as well. So once you're settled and you're ready to begin, you can close off your eyes and place your palms either face up or face down on your knees. So whichever one feels more comfortable through the upper body, feeling through the shoulders as well. You might want to turn the hands over a couple times and feel for yourself what you like better. So once you're settled into a position that feels comfortable for you, then you're going to start to focus on your seat. Always like to ground at the beginning of a yoga practice, and part of that is really feeling into the areas of your body that are connected with your mat, and just noticing that feeling of heaviness as you sink down into your mat and directly connecting with the earth. Even if you're up a few floors, you're still going to be connected into a building, which is connected into the floor. Into the earth. So we're rooting, we're grounding, starting off the practice that way, and then from those roots and from those points where we're heavy and grounded into the floor, we're sitting up tall, we're lifting the chest, we're expanding across the collarbones and across the rib cage as you bring the shoulders back and down behind you. And you can make a couple of these big exaggerated shoulder shrugs. You could even take the arms fully straight if you wanted to and make an arm circle, a really big arm circle, or you can keep the elbows sort of bent in. I find that usually feels a little bit better for my arms. So settling again, hands back where they were, and then just noticing where your head and neck are at in relation to the rest of your spine. So you might need to sort of lean back your head and neck a little bit. So we tend to crane our head and neck forward quite a bit, just by virtue of our positions that we work in and the kinds of work that we do, some of us. So most people need at least a little bit of an adjustment of the head and neck back in order to line it up with the spine. And if you had a mirror next to you, that would be very helpful. You'd be able to look and actually see that column. But for now, we'll use our mind's eye and just picture what our body looks like in this position, and does it look / feel like it's straight and aligned. If you are nice and aligned, then you'll have sort of a sensation of floating through the crown of the head as it rises, fully supported by all the structures of the spine below. And let's start to focus on the breathing here just for a couple of breaths, maybe 3 breaths, but we'll switch our legs first before I forget about that. So we'll just put whatever leg was in the front and then behind. And this just helps to stretch out the hips in the opposite way. So you're getting a very subtle hip stretch as you're sitting like this. Even if it is comfortable just to sit on the floor in this position, you are still opening out the hips to some degree as you let the knees drop out further, etc. So important to switch at some point. Now we'll take some deep breaths. So we'll practice our whole body breathing. So we'll be inhaling, filling the chest, filling through the ribs and diaphragm area, filling through the side body and back body, filling through the tummy, all the way up to the top of the throat. Super, super full everywhere, and then exhaling completely. Everything kind of comes in, there's this little contraction, right? Inhaling again, there's that rise of the chest forward, lifting through the crown. So everything we were practicing through that alignment, plus that expansion through the whole body, through the whole torso anyways, with the inhaling breath. And exhale. And it feels like we're breathing all the way down into our belly and all the way through these other organs, because everything is pushed out of the way as the lungs expand, and they can get pretty big. So continuing one more breath like that. Exhaling through the mouth if that's something that feels good for you. And then we will slowly start to open the eyes, just blinking a few times, coming back into your space. So from here, we'll take the arms up overhead on an inhale breath, and then exhale, bring the arms down through the center. 2 more big breaths. Inhale, lifting the arms. It's not quite as big of breaths as those last 3, but still filling up through the full torso. Purposely sending breath down into the belly, especially because we don't tend to naturally breathe there, especially when we're really stressed out, like we have been for a while now. Although things are starting to get sort of back to normal-ish, but it'll take a while before we're all really truly back to normal, if that is even where we're headed. Coming onto all fours to continue on with our practice. So to start with here, we're going to do our cat-cows, but I'd like to offer the option to make circles out of your cat-cow. So I have another video where we went through these cat-cow circles in quite some detail of how they work. So I'll give you some instruction just in case you haven't seen that one. Your basic cat-cow is the inhale, dropping the belly down, tilting the pelvis, and lifting the gaze. And then the second movement is exhaling. Gaze shifts towards the legs. Spine lifts towards the ceiling, pelvis tucks under. From there, you can take it and make it a 3-dimensional movement by bringing the body out and around to the side as you begin to exhale, coming up and around through the same movement, and then out and around to the other side as you begin to inhale, drop the belly down and around. So it's the same movement at the top and the bottom, but the way that you're getting there is changing. So if you are doing circles, you're going to want to do about 3 circles in one direction and 3 in the other direction. And if you are just doing your basic cat-cows, then I would invite you at this point to switch and do sort of a side-to-side cat-cow. So we often call this wagging the tail, and it's a type of side bend where you turn towards, say, your right-hand side, and you'll sort of stick your right hip out to the side as well so that you can look back and see your hip around your shoulder. Then you'll come back into neutral, and then you'll swing the opposite way. You get a little bit of a side crunch, and then obviously you're stretching through the side that you're not crunching. By now I would assume that if you're doing circles that you're complete in both directions, and then you had a chance to do a couple of side bends if you were just doing the basic cat-cow. So we'll all come back together here and just take a child's pose. So knees come out wide, toes come together behind, and we'll sit back. So the moon salutation includes some side bends. So to get us warmed up and ready for those standing side bends, we're going to practice a side bend in child's pose as well. So our initial child's pose is just straightforward child's pose in a neutral position, arms outstretched, heels sit back, or hips sit back back towards heels. And the chest lowers down as we open across the shoulders and the collarbones. Head can rest down. And then to make this a side bend, you'll move one hand over to the side. So right hand first, we'll move just over to the outside of the mat. So it's just sitting on the floor, just a centimeter or two to the outside of the mat. If you're really bendable through your side body, you might be able to go a little further, maybe a couple inches out from the side of your mat. It just depends on how open your body is today, and that can change from day to day. Your left hand is going to come across to join together with this right hand, and then you'll sink down through the chest, just like you were in the center. Only now you've got your legs sort of blocking your stretch on the one side. So you won't be able to breathe as deeply into that side. You'll have to breathe more deeply into the side you're bending through. But that's kind of perfect, because that's what we're looking to get out of this stretch anyways. Nice deep breaths, really filling through that left side of the body. Opening up along all the muscles of the side body, from the armpit down through the side ribs, into the obliques of your abs, and you might even feel this down into your hip. Let's go to the other side. You can slowly walk the hands across, taking steps with the hands until you make it over to the other side. Right hand comes on top of left, and then lowering down once again. So again, we're opening through that side body with the breath. Coming a little further towards the left if you need to. And let's come back into the center here. Lifting up off of the hips. We'll come onto our hands and knees again here, and we'll take a twist. So it's always good to, in a warm-up, include some kind of a reaching up, some kind of a side bend, some kind of a twist, and then some kind of a cat-cow movement with the flexion and extension. I did those backwards of the spine. So we've basically done all of those so far except for our twist. So we'll do that now in thread the needle pose. So thread the needle pose goes like so. You're going to lift your right arm out to the side, and then you'll thread it through this very large eye of the needle. So as that passes through, you're going to start to lower down the upper body. So you might be able to bring your shoulder right down to the floor. If so, that's great, but some of us might not be so flexible, and the shoulder might not come all the way to the floor. That's okay. You're just going to walk your hand out as much as possible and come as low as you can. If you can, rest your head down, then that's a good option. And if your shoulder is able to go all the way down, obviously you are going to rest your head, and you'll continue to actively reach your left arm away. One thing you want to notice in either position is if your hips have stayed square. So there's going to be a tendency for this hip on the right, when we're threading the right arm through, to get tilted. So bringing the hips, bend the hips, did I really just say that? Bring the hips to a position where they're at the same height and they're not twisting. Them hips, oh my goodness. Using that left arm, you're going to slowly push the floor away, coming back onto all threes, because we're going to lift up that right arm towards the ceiling. Counter twist. So sometimes when you do a twist, it's nice to twist in the opposite direction, just to balance out the movement. So here we go into the second side, taking your left hand now. Sorry, got dog hair on my nose. Lifting it out before we thread that through, bringing the shoulder down, head down, and then reaching out through the right arm, actively recentering our hips, squaring them towards the ceiling. So that's a good way of looking at it. Your hips should be nice and flat so that it's parallel with the ceiling above you, and the floor below you as well, I suppose. Taking some deep breaths here, letting the chest be heavy as much as you can, lowering it down. So that's going to activate the stretch through the back of the shoulder with your body weight. And let's press through the right arm, come up. And again, we're opening with that counter stretch out towards the left, reaching for the ceiling, and then coming back. So if you have some water nearby, grab some now. So we're going to start moving towards coming up to standing now. I'm just going to check how much time we have here. Oh, good. We're doing all right. So placing the hands back down, coming to all fours, and we're just going to get right into our downward facing dog. So I like to walk my hands a little further forward, tuck under the toes, and start to shift the weight. So I'm in more of a low plank than an all fours position. From this point, with the toes tucked, you're going to start to press so the knees lift up off of the floor. So right away your core is going to turn on as you do that. Then you'll start to lift the hips up and send them back. So up first, as high as they'll go, and then they'll naturally start to shift back as you find your range of motion. And bend your knees here. Maybe quite a lot. It actually feels really good to bend the knees and really stretch out through the upper body, which is where I usually like to start with my downward facing dog, getting that all into alignment, and then working towards straight legs if that's part of my practice on a given day. From here, we're just going to pedal out the feet a little bit, walking sort of so that one heel drops down, one knee bends in, and they alternate back and forth. You might even take some two-leg pulses if that feels good for you. Keeping that upper body in alignment the whole time, and then we'll start to walk the feet in towards the hands. Again, trying to keep that spinal alignment for as long as possible, but at some point you will have to round a bit as you're folding, but bend through the knees so you're not rounding your lower back. Inhale, halfway lift. So knees are still a little bit bent, upper body is approximately parallel to the floor, and exhale to fold. Inhale, let's roll up real slowly. So getting one vertebra at a time stacked over the hips as you very slowly. So I'm still only about maybe halfway up my back. So when I say slow, I do mean slow. You might have some double chin action as you come up towards the neck, but shoulders go, then the neck, and then the head. And oh my goodness, when you really take the time to stack your spine like that, it feels so good when you finally get up to standing. So from our standing position, we are going to jump right into our moon salutation. For the moon salutation, we start facing, well, I'm going to be facing you guys, but you'll be facing a side wall to start off with. Unless you want to pause this and turn your mat, by all means, you could totally do that now. We begin with the hands in prayer, and then we'll inhale, lift the arms up overhead, exhale, sit down into a goddess squat. Okay, we're going to take an inhale breath, exhale breath, and then as you inhale, you'll extend through the legs straight, extend through the arms straight. This is called a star pose, and then we are going to exhale into triangle. So you tip towards the side, pivoting through your right foot as you come into your triangle. So you'll rest your arm against your leg and you'll lift your left arm up overhead, trying to keep the side body here nice and straight as you look up towards the ceiling. From here, you'll sort of cartwheel or windmill your arms over So you're coming into a pyramid pose. This back foot will pivot, so it's on a bit of an angle towards the side, and then you'll straighten out your legs almost all the way, keeping just a slight bend in the knee as you forward fold over your front leg. And this is, again, a moment where the hips are going to be square towards the front. So I noticed my hips were a little open, so I'm just adjusting my back foot forward a little bit. So forward fold over that front leg. You might want to inhale, halfway lift, bring hands to shins, and exhale back down. Ooh, not lose your balance, ideally. But if you do, that's okay. I shouldn't say that. Balance gets lost, and then it gets found again. From here, we'll drop the hands right down if they weren't already on the floor, and just step back for a low lunge. Inhale as you lift the arms up overhead. Exhale, bringing both hands down to the inside of your right knee. We're going to tuck the toe on the left and pivot around into a side lunge. So if you have very flexible hips, you can sit right on down into what's called Skandasana, or I just call it a ninja lunge because it looks really ninja-like. So my hips are actually a little on the close side today, I'll be honest. What you want to do is be able to lower the heel down on that side comfortably and then get the elbows inside of that knee. So there's a little bit of a rotation. It's a really strong opening in the groin. So I'm going to come up a little bit and just demonstrate. If your hips are a little more closed, then you're just going to be in a side lunge here. And you can totally rest your hands in your leg. That's absolutely fine. From here, we're going to transition through to the other side. So if you are in that really low squat, you're going to have to really power up through that glute to come up into a little wide-legged forward fold here. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Okay, so over towards the Skandasana on the second side. So you'll come into the lunge, so this foot is going to pivot out a little bit. There's a lot of foot turning going on in this little flow. So you're either up in this higher lunge or you're coming down into this lower lunge where your foot on the right hand side is going to turn up, left elbow inside the left knee, slight rotation through the upper body, heel is down. From here, you can place the hands down, turning into our low lunge. Knee drops down on the right hand side, foot flattens out. Inhale, lifting the hands up overhead. Exhale, lowering them down to the floor. Tucking under back toe, you're going to step in the back foot quite a bit. We're coming into our pyramid pose. So we're doing this flow on the opposite side in reverse, and you might be facing away from the camera, or the screen rather, and that's okay. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. So knees not quite all the way locked straight, guys. Little bit of a bend, or maybe you want to bend a lot in that front leg. And actually this hamstring is a lot tighter, so I am going to keep that bend. That feels good. Listening to your body, squaring the hips towards the front. Almost missed that one. And then let's come into our triangle pose. So you might step your foot a little bit back. That foot is going to point straight towards the side wall. Then you'll straighten out your arms and tip until you come into a comfortable triangle pose with the side body nice and straight, parallel with the floor. Right arm lifts up towards the ceiling, left will rest against the leg, or if you're quite flexible, you might be able to get all the way down here while still keeping this opening and rotation with a straight side body, but that's a bit much for me today, to be honest. I'm pretty stiff. Good. Rotating back down towards the floor, and then we'll come back up into our star pose. Yes, we're almost done. Sitting back and down, finding your goddess squat. Just bringing the hands onto the knees for some shoulder dips. So we're going to be pulsing down as we dip the shoulder in the center. Okay? Just gonna do that about 3 times on each side. Inhale to rise up, bringing the feet in, stepping them in together, and then that's exhale over to the side. Inhale up, exhale over to the other side, side bend. Inhale, exhale, coming into forward fold with the legs about hip distance apart. Slight bend in the knees, keeping the lower back nice and straight as you fold. Belly should be making contact with the thighs here. Letting the head and neck hang heavy. And then let's come down to the floor, to a nice seat. And actually, we'll do a final twist and a final forward fold on each side, and then we'll call it a day for this practice. Sitting up nice and tall, inhale. You're going to bend in your right knee and fold over your left leg. You might bend this knee in a bit. That'll help you to be able to keep your back nice and straight, your chest lifted, as you should be leading down with your chest rather than your face. Foot is flexed, toes back towards you. And then sitting up here, we'll transition into the twist. So bringing the right foot to the outside of the left knee, sitting up nice and tall first and getting grounded through the hips, making sure you can feel both hip points, really nice and grounded down into the floor. Then from an inhale breath, you'll exhale and twist towards your knee. So taking your left hand, wrapping it, your left arm, wrapping it around the knee, sitting up again nice and tall as you finish twisting through your chest. So you might be taking a few breaths to get into your twist, sitting up on inhales, twisting through on exhales, and that's exactly what you want to be doing, taking your time, being intentional, moving with your breath, and then release towards the front. And we'll take a little counter twist towards the other side as well on an exhale, twisting towards the left, maybe looking back behind your shoulder just for one breath. We're not going to hold that counter stretch on the other side. So, okay, coming back into the center, we'll bring that left leg in, sitting up tall, inhale. Exhale, you might bend the knee as you come down the leg, leading with the chest. Flexing the toes towards your face on that right hand foot. In this stretch, you'll also use the breath by inhaling to gain length and come forward, and exhaling to come down and lower. Inhaling to sit up nice and tall again here. You can straighten out that right leg as you bring the left foot across the outside of the right knee, grounding through the hip. Inhale, sit up nice and tall. As you exhale, wrap the right arm around the left knee. Again, you might use a couple breaths here. Inhale, exhale. Turning through your whole upper body. So right from the belly, through the middle of your body, your waist, through your chest, shoulders, head and neck, everything. Unless it hurts to move your head and neck in that angle, in that direction, in which case don't worry about that. Let the rest of your torso rotate and leave your head and neck neutral. Release, coming out of this, and then into our counter twist. Hugging the knee the opposite way, and just turning for one breath to release forward. So you can bring yourself down to the floor, keeping your soles of your feet down on the mat, just rolling back through the vertebra, just like we rolled up. Now you're going to roll back. You can use your legs, hands on your legs to sort of guide you down a little at a time, using your core a little bit as well, coming all the way down onto the floor. You'll probably want to make sure you have enough space on your mat that your head isn't sticking off. So with the knees bent the way they are, then we can sort of use the heels to lift the hips up and just ground the lower back down. So we'll sort of roll in the opposite direction now, but just the last few bottom vertebra here down onto the mat, and then the hips will come down after that. So if you were to just lie down and not pay attention to your lower back, we usually have a really big curve in the lower back. When we purposely ground the lower back down like that, it helps us to shift our body into a restful nervous system kind of setting almost. You can think about it like that. It's a rest mode for your nervous system. And that's one way that you can engage that rest mode is by getting that lower back nice and flush with the floor. Then you can extend your legs out from that point, trying to keep the lower back as grounded as possible. Letting the feet just flop out or in, whatever it is that they want to do, and allowing the legs to just relax. Making any little adjustments as needed, trying to keep a micro bend through the knees. If you have a bolster, it's actually great to throw the bolster under your knees and keep them a little bit bent, because that helps again with the lower back, and it's another cue for your body to rest. Just a couple of deep breaths here. We're not going to spend a ton of time in this Shavasana, at least not on the video portion, because we're right at about 30 minutes right now. Just taking a few belly breaths, resting your hands on your stomach so you can feel that rising and falling. You want to tuck your shoulders under your chest for comfort, allowing the chest to expand and the shoulders to rest a little better against the floor. Head and neck are rested. You might turn the head from side to side, nice and gently and slowly, just to stretch out any last little kinks before you try to rest the head and neck in a nice long position against the floor. Face is relaxed, tongue is relaxed in the mouth, eyes are relaxed in the eye sockets. I'm going to end the practice right there for today. That feels like a good spot to stop the video. Thank you so much for practicing yet again with me today. I hope you enjoyed that practice, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day and a great weekend.